Have you ever imagined by chance encountering someone from your past whom you'd rather forget, yet who carries in their eyes everything you've lost? That was exactly what happened to Thomas. That night in Los Angeles, he had everything under control. A business dinner at one of the city's most expensive restaurants, a glass of French wine, and elegant company by his side. But when he looked down the corridor leading to the bathroom, something paralyzed his body. It was as if time had stopped. And what he saw was impossible to ignore. What would you do if you saw the person who was once the love of your life, now cleaning the bathrooms of a restaurant where you dine as a VIP? And furthermore, what would you feel if you discovered that she is pregnant and alone? Thomas never imagined he would have to face such questions, but the answer to the first is simple. He froze. And for the second, guilt. An overwhelming guilt that no amount of money could erase, because in that instant, all the success he had built crumbled like a house of cards. The Millionaire restaurant in Beverly Hills shone under golden lights and immaculate waiters. Thomas Herrera, 46, CEO of one of California's largest development companies, was there with Olivia, the perfect woman by the standards of his new world, ambitious, sophisticated, and addicted to status. But that night, while she talked about wines and investments, he barely listened. His eyes were fixed in another direction, on the figure of a woman discreetly crossing the dining hall, wearing a cleaning uniform, her head bowed, and with a visibly pregnant belly. "Tommy, are you all right?" asked Olivia, smiling with her lips while furrowing her brow. He did not answer. He was in shock. The woman cleaning the bathrooms was Emily, his ex-wife, the woman he had left years ago with cruel words and even worse decisions. Thomas's heart raced, his hand trembling on the glass. Emily was there, living a reality he had never imagined. Or, worse, one he had always avoided imagining. And now there was no longer any way to pretend that she had never existed. Thomas got up abruptly. He mumbled something vague to Olivia, as if he were just heading to the bathroom, but his mind was elsewhere. Every step toward that door felt like an eternity. He needed air. He needed to think. In the men's room, he rested his hands on the marble sink and stared at his own reflection. The man he saw was not the same as 5 years ago. On the outside, perhaps more elegant, more successful. On the inside, a stranger who now had to confront the past he had tried to bury. On the other side of the wall, he could hear the sound of buckets being dragged, the click of products being arranged. Emily was there, just a few meters away, cleaning the floor of a restaurant where he spent thousands of dollars per night. She, who once slept in linen sheets next to him. She, who shared dreams and bills, who knew the taste of failure and hope even. Before he reached the top, the silence of the bathroom felt suffocating. For the first time in a long while, Thomas did not feel in control of anything. Memories returned like a film he did not want to watch. The last time he had seen Emily, she was crying in his office, begging for a chance, insisting that it was all a mistake. And he, blinded by ego, by the thirst for growth, by the influence of people like Olivia, treated her as an obstacle. He cut everything off. Bank accounts, credit cards, car, even access to their circle of friends. She disappeared from his life in a matter of days, as if she had never existed. And now, before him, was the proof that she had moved on, alone. When he returned to the table, Olivia smiled as if nothing had happened. She had already ordered the wine and was commenting on a trip to Napa Valley, while Thomas sat in silence. The taste of the wine, which once seemed sophisticated, now tasted bitter to him. The restaurant, the expensive dishes, the ambiance, everything felt like a stage set, a facade built to hide the emptiness he carried. Olivia talked, but he no longer listened. Emily had returned, not to his life, but to his conscience. And now he had to decide what to do about it. Emily was in the staff locker room, trying to organize the products inside the tiny closet. Her hands trembled more than usual. The unexpected encounter with Thomas had shaken a structure that she had taken years to rebuild. She sat for a moment on the worn wooden bench, taking a deep breath. The clock on the wall read 9:47 p.m. In just over an hour, she would be free to return to her small apartment in East LA, where her son slept under the care of Donna Rosa, the neighbor upstairs. The life she now led had nothing glamorous about it, but it was hers. Emily had learned to survive. She worked in 2 different places, cleaned family homes during the day, and 2 nights a week sold cosmetics to supplement her income. Every penny was counted, every expense planned with precision. Her son, Matthias, needed everything a child deserves: school, food, clothing, books. And now, with a baby on the way, everything seemed to double. Yes, she was pregnant again, but not by Thomas. The baby's father was named Miguel, a literature teacher whom she met in an evening class when she decided to finish her degree. It was a brief but genuine romance. He treated her with respect, something she had not experienced in a long time. But fate was cruel. Miguel died in a motorcycle accident 3 months earlier, leaving Emily alone once again. The difference was that now she knew how to stand on her own. She didn't depend on anyone. She had learned the hard way to be strong, not out of pride, but out of necessity. "Emily, are you all right?" Julia's voice, the supervisor, snapped her out of her thoughts. "The second-floor bathroom needs to be checked." She nodded with a quick smile, putting her apron back on. She climbed the service stairs, remembering a day she had to sell her last valuable jewel, an emerald ring that Thomas had given her on their first wedding anniversary. She sold it for a pittance, but it was enough to pay for 2 months' rent in a small room at the back of an old house. It was there that she started over. It was there that she decided never to depend on anyone again. In the second-floor bathroom, Emily stared at herself in the mirror as she scrubbed the marble sinks. At 38, she still carried traces of the beauty that had once caught Thomas's attention. But now it was a different face, firmer, marked by subtle lines that told stories of struggle, loss, and overcoming. Once, a client told her, "You have a face too beautiful for this kind of work." Emily just smiled. If that woman knew that years ago she herself had dined in that same restaurant wearing a Carolina Herrera dress and drinking French champagne. But it wasn't the luxury she missed. What hurt was the way everything had happened. The accusations, the disdain, the speed with which her life was dismantled. Thomas didn't just separate from her, he erased her. He cut off ties, emptied the accounts, even froze the relationship with their mutual friends. Emily was left alone overnight, as if she had never been a part of his life. And now, seeing him again, there, so close yet so distant at the same time, brought back all those memories like powerful waves. Downstairs, Thomas was still at the table with Olivia, but his mind was elsewhere. He tried to pretend normalcy, but everything in him screamed discomfort. When he finally finished dinner, he refused dessert, asked for the bill, and left a generous tip, perhaps trying in a futile way to compensate for the guilt gnawing at him inside. As he left the restaurant, he looked towards the back of the building, as if expecting to see Emily again. But she had already disappeared among the corridors and tasks, as always, invisible to the world around her. That night, Emily arrived home exhausted. Matthias was sleeping deeply, one of his arms dangling out from under the blanket. She moved slowly, adjusted the sheet over him, then sat on the small living room sofa. The envelope of bills was still there, waiting for her attention. But for a few minutes, she just sat there, thinking about Thomas, about the look he gave her when he recognized her. There was something in it. Regret, pity, curiosity. She didn't know, and deep down, she didn't want to know. She had learned that some doors, once closed, are better left locked. Thomas, on the other hand, couldn't sleep that night. The image of Emily silently cleaning bathrooms with heavy shoulders and a tired gaze haunted him like a ghost in the dark. In his luxurious penthouse in West Hollywood, surrounded by comfort and technology, everything felt empty. Olivia had sent messages, but he did not reply. He grabbed his laptop, typed Emily's full name into the search engine. Almost nothing. No active social media, no updated information. She had vanished from the internet as if she wanted to vanish from the world. After several attempts, he found an old photo from her college days. Emily was smiling, embraced with a small child. It must have been her son, Matthias. The boy had familiar features. Thomas felt his stomach tighten. Could it be? No, it couldn't be his. Matthias appeared to be around 4 years old. Had Emily already been pregnant when he signed the divorce? That left him stunned. Memories began to resurface. Now with greater clarity, the last day together, the screams, the unfounded accusations, the way she tried to explain something he refused to listen to. The remorse began to turn into restlessness. And, for the first time in a long while, Thomas felt the need to do something that wasn't linked to profit or image, to right a wrong, or at least try. The next day, he called an old contact, a private investigator he used for business matters. He asked for everything about Emily, her address, her routine, where she worked besides the restaurant. He wanted to know not to harm her, but to help her. Yet he knew that after everything, he couldn't just show up and expect to be welcomed. Meanwhile, Emily faced another ordinary day, which for her meant exhaustion. She got up at 5 in the morning, got Matthias ready, handed him over to Donna Rosa, and went to her first job of the day. She cleaned 2 apartments before heading to a house in Brentwood, where she washed windows and waxed the floor. Then she had only 15 minutes to grab something to eat before catching 2 buses to Maison Lumière. Her uniform was clean but wrinkled. As soon as she arrived, Julia called her. "Your son is on the line. He said he's not feeling well." Emily felt her heart freeze. Emily ran to the small staff break room where the landline was located. While waiting for the call to be transferred, she tried to control her breathing. "Hi, Mommy. I have a fever," said Matthias in a weak voice. Donna Rosa picked up the phone and explained that the boy had a hot forehead and was refusing food. Emily closed her eyes for a moment. She needed to work, but she also needed to be with her son. "Give him the medicine that's in the first drawer, and I'll try to leave early," she said with a heavy heart. She hung up and stood still for a few seconds, processing it all. She would need to ask the supervisor to leave before the end of her shift, which would probably compromise her weekly pay. But there was no choice. Her son came first. That was something she had learned over the years. Priorities change when you truly love. The uniform, which a moment ago had seemed like a reminder of the humiliation of seeing Thomas, was now just fabric, a tool for work. And working, at that moment, was one of the most dignified ways she knew to love. From the main dining hall, the laughter continued, the clinking of cutlery, the luxurious ambience oblivious to the reality of people like her. Emily looked at her own, ends marked by cleaning products, and smiled gently, because despite everything, she had something that many there probably did not know: strength. Not brute strength, but the kind that is built day by day, in silence, with sacrifices and persistence. The strength to get up early even when tired, to love even after being hurt, and to move forward even when everything seems to scream for you to give up. On the other side of the city, Thomas got out of the car discreetly and stopped a few meters from the exit of the school where Matthias studied. The investigator had been quick. He already knew where she lived, who she left her son with, and what their basic routine was. It was a simple street, but a quiet one. At 4:30 p.m., he saw Emily approaching, visibly tired, still in the uniform of the family home where she had worked earlier. Matthias ran to her with his backpack bouncing and an open smile, even though he looked visibly worn out. Thomas couldn't stand it. He got out of the car and called, "Emily!" Emily froze upon hearing her name. Instinctively, she pulled Matthias closer to her. When she turned, Thomas's eyes met hers, hard, closed like a wall. "What are you doing here?" she asked in a low but firm voice. Thomas took a step forward, but stopped when he saw Matthias hide behind his mother. I needed to talk to you. Just for a few minutes." Emily looked around, noticing some curious glances from other mothers. "We have nothing to talk about, Thomas. Go away." "Who is he, Mommy?" asked Matthias, his eyes wide. The question hung in the air, loaded with weight. Emily took a deep breath, as if summoning the strength to stand. "Nobody important, dear. Let's go home." She tried to leave, but Thomas took an envelope out of his jacket and extended it toward her. "Please, just read it." Emily hesitated for a second, just to avoid a bigger scene. She took the envelope with one hand, squeezed Matthias's hand with the other, and quickly walked away. She didn't look back. That night, after putting Matthias to bed, Emily sat at the kitchen table. The envelope was still intact on the plastic tablecloth with a fruit pattern. She stared at it as if facing a bomb about to explode. Finally, she opened it. Inside was a check with a high amount and a handwritten letter. Thomas wrote that he knew nothing he did could erase the past, but he wanted to help. He offered financial support, a job at his company, and stated that he did not expect forgiveness, only the chance to do the right thing. Emily read it to the end with trembling hands. Then she tore the check into small pieces. Picking up her cell phone, she took a deep breath and dialed a number she hadn't used in 5 years. When Thomas answered, his voice sounded almost hopeful. "Never show up near my son again," said Emily, each word laden with contained fury. "I don't want your money, I don't want your job, I don't want anything from you. Understand?" Thomas tried to respond, but she cut him off. "Eduardo is my son, and you are just the man who abandoned us even before he was born. Don't confuse remorse with entitlement." The next day, Emily woke up early as always. She prepared breakfast for Matthias, fixed his backpack, and took him to school hand in hand, as she did every day. But inside, she still felt the weight of what had happened the previous night. On her way back, she stopped at the building's reception where Thomas worked and left an envelope containing the torn pieces of the check and a handwritten note, "My dignity is not for sale." She left without waiting for a response. She had more to do. She had a life to live, with or without his interference. Thomas received the envelope in the middle of the afternoon. Sitting in his meeting room with a view of downtown Los Angeles, he took a while before he managed to open it. When he saw the contents, he felt a mix of despair and admiration. Emily was still that upright, strong woman he had known years ago. Only now she no longer needed him, and that hurt more than anything. For the first time in a long while, he understood that he had lost something that no amount of money could buy: respect. In the days that followed, Thomas avoided Olivia. He also shunned social gatherings, business events, even his own friends. He locked himself in the office, rummaging through old files and documents. He eventually found the divorce papers, the absurd accusations he had drafted himself, influenced by lawyers and people like Olivia. He read everything with the eyes of today, and every line felt like a stab to his own chest. That's when he decided. He called his lawyer and asked to review the separation agreement. "I want to fix everything I can, even if it's too late." Later that same week, he went to Matthias's school again. not to make a scene, just to see him, even if from afar. He was determined to be part of his son's life, even if Emily never accepted him as a father. Just by seeing the boy run with his backpack on, smiling at his friends, he felt something change within him. Matthias seemed happy, healthy, and that was what mattered. But Thomas knew he had lost the right to be by his side, and if he wanted to regain even a small space, it would have to be in a way he had never tried before, with humility. 2 days later, Emily received a call from the manager of the restaurant where she worked. "Your ex-husband came by," the woman said, in a tone somewhere between curious and respectful. "Not to cause trouble. He talked about you. He said you worked here with dignity, even during the worst times. Honestly, I was touched." Emily listened in silence. "I wanted to offer you an administrative position. I know you're finishing your degree. The position is yours, on merit. It has nothing to do with him." Emily hung up with a heavy heart. She thought about everything she had been through in recent years and for the first time considered accepting a new opportunity for herself, not for him. That night, after putting Matthias to bed, Emily sat on the balcony of her small apartment, feeling the warm Los Angeles breeze. She was exhausted, but at peace. She knew that her story was not easy to explain, neither clean nor perfect, but it was real. It was a story of rebuilding, of self-love, of rebirth. Looking at her sleeping son, she felt proud. She had built everything on her own, brick by brick. Inside, her phone vibrated, a message from Thomas. "Thank you for showing me what really matters. I promise to keep trying to be someone better, even if only from afar." She read it, but did not reply. Not yet. Because now her responses would not come impulsively. They would come in due time. Maybe they would never be a traditional family. Perhaps she would never fully forgive Thomas. But deep down, Emily knew that the most important thing had already happened. She had won. Against everything and everyone. Against shame, abandonment, loneliness, loss. She rebuilt her life, protected her son, and maintained her dignity, and that no one could ever take from her. Sometimes overcoming doesn't come with applause or fairy tale endings. Sometimes it comes silently, at the end of a hard day, when you realize that despite everything, you are still standing, and stronger than ever. Quote of the day: "True strength is not in never falling, but in rising every time life tries to knock you down." If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel. Leave your like and activate notifications so you don't miss the next tales. And tell us in the comments, which city are you watching from?